Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Brit and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Kristen Humiston, a passionate therapist, coach, and mom of 6 who brings both clinical experience and lived experience to the work of healing. She's a licensed advanced practice social worker who is certified in brain spotting and EMDR, and her specialty is working with trauma and stress-related challenges, including PTSD, anxiety, relational problems, and spiritual wounding. She tells her story more in episode 1, but Kristen's journey started in the music world as she owned a music studio for over 20 years while homeschooling. Then, in 2019, after a season of personal and family trauma and healing, Kristen felt drawn to pursue therapy as a career. Today, she helps women and couples rediscover their worth and step into their strength with courage and clarity through her Appleton-based business, Courageous Healing Therapy. Kristen loves to learn new things, and with kids ranging from 9 to 21 years old, her most recent hobbies include being a sports mom chauffeur, pottery classes, relearning 5th grade math, and spending time with her husband. All right, it's time to invite Kristen to the mic, so let's dive in.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Motherhood Alliance podcast. We are so excited to welcome Kristen back into the studio. Welcome back, Kristen.
Thanks. Great to be here again.
In this episode, I'm really excited to delve into this because what we're going to be talking about is the unhealed childhood trauma that impacts our parenting. And I feel like more than all of us, I think all of us can relate to this in one way or another, even if we don't think it does. There's so much guilt, there's so much stress. There's a lot of things that happen in motherhood that just impact how we react to our kids. And a lot of it has to do with our history, I feel like. So I think the first question I want to talk about is how does unhealed childhood wounds show up in mom's everyday life? What does that look like?
It looks like mom feeling stress and she doesn't know why, or fear, worry that she doesn't know why. Can look like mom having extreme low self-esteem, chronically thinking, I'm just not good at this. It looks like tension when dad comes home from work, even if it's not related to dad coming home from work. It looks like reactivity when a coach uses any kind of emotional output towards your child, maybe I don't want to say overprotection. We are supposed to protect our kids, but always thinking someone's out to get our kids or to get us.
How can you know if your reactions and a lot of those things that you're talking about are due to something you're holding from childhood, or maybe you're just feeling stressed out in this current season?
Great question. I would say most of our reactions, about 80% of what we do, comes from what's been ingrained in our system and in our neural pathways, not only ways of thinking, but how our body, our nervous system has learned to exist. And so even in a home where it felt like I grew up in a great home, I had great loving parents, if there was a lack of attunement, if there was distraction where chronically parents were distracted or you were left alone to just kind of fend for yourself in, after school, this isn't to blame parents, but distracted parenting, emotionally immature parenting, which can also be that reactivity, high reactivity. It can be when our parents have put us in a position of managing their emotions. When we live in an environment like that as a child, chronic stressful environment with not getting our own needs met, it impacts our nervous system. I'll give you an example of this because I think this is important. When I was a young mom staying at home, I would be on the phone in the afternoon, like if a kid had a nap, and my husband would come home from work, and I would feel extreme pressure, like, oh my goodness, I need to get off the phone. I'm doing something wrong. There was a sense of me doing something wrong by talking to my friend on the phone. My husband is a loving man. He has never hurt me. He has never yelled at me. There's no reason that my body would have felt stress from him pulling in the driveway. But I felt extreme pressure that like I needed to get off the phone and make sure that when he came in the door, I was making life okay for him. And it was only in the last 2 years, I've done a lot of work in trauma for multiple years now, but it was just 2 summers ago that my husband came home from work. I felt that. Was talking with a friend. We hadn't connected in about 6 months, and we'd been talking for about 45 minutes, and I said, I need to get off the phone. My husband's home. And then I said, I don't know why I need to get off the phone because my husband's home. I said, that was strange, wasn't it? And she was like, yeah, but you've said that before. And I said, huh. So we continued talking. My husband came in, he kind of waved, and I felt this tension in my body the whole time I stayed on the phone with her, but I intentionally, and we were talking about it. This is what therapists do. And so I challenged that feeling, and I just spent my time with her, got off the phone, and then I reflected, what was going on? What was this about underneath here? And I realized I grew up in a home where every time Dad pulled in the driveway, I had to stop. The whole house had to stop. We all had to make sure that when Dad walked in the door, he had the attention. If he wanted us to go find something, like whatever. It was about how my body had learned to react to my father coming home. And all these years, I've been married for 23 years, I've reacted to my husband the same way, and it's never been about him.
I feel like so many moms are relating right now, the ones who are specifically stay-at-home moms, because stay-at-home mom is a hard job. It is really a 24/7 job, and it is exhausting, especially when the kids are little, because as soon as you clean up one room, the room that was next to you is now bombed. And so it always feels like there's no visual to what you got done that day. And so I think a lot of women are relating to you right now, because when Dad is getting home, he's been gone and working all day. You just have this envisionment in your head, whether it's from movies or maybe your childhood or whatever it is, that he's walking in, the dinner is ready and the kids are kind and they're not fighting and the house is picked up, and I want him to want to come home, not walk into a house that is full of stress just walking in the door. So how do you kind of navigate that? I appreciate your story because it's so relatable, but I feel like so many people are struggling with that. So how can they combat that?
Yeah. Takes time and awareness, right? What am I reacting to? What is this really about? And there's so many parts to this because our culture at large has played a role at, like, for example, this, when Dad comes home, when husband comes home, when partner comes home, everything should be as is. So definitely having a conversation with your partner and saying, hey, what are your expectations when you come home? Sometimes we know. Sometimes there is a reaction because of how that partner comes home. Mm-hmm. And that's a different conversation.
Yeah. That's more about them.
Right. Like
versus what's internally going on.
Exactly.
In you.
Exactly. Yeah. When there is a present day stress and reason for this, but in terms of why am I sensing this, even though this doesn't actually match what's happening right now, then that's about the underlying what's happened to me before.
Yeah. In the last episode, you said a term called leaking. And I think that has a lot to do with what we're talking about now as far as unhealed wounds spilling into parenting. Can you talk about what leaking is, what that framework is?
Yeah. Leaking is a term I've used, and I put some practical pieces to those letters to help us understand what is leaking, because it is that spilling out of these things. So leaking, lashing out. The L is for lashing out. E, emotional numbness. A, anxiety. K, keeping it all inside. I, imposter syndrome. N, neglecting your own needs. And G, generational patterns on repeat. So these are, they help us. It's a framework that helps us understand what's happening. And not all of these things are necessarily going to be found in all the same person, but some of these things will be found if you are struggling, and if there are those childhood wounds that need to be addressed. These can be helpful ways of knowing if that's happening in your current life.
I feel like listening to that list, all of us got a little bit of a turn in the stomach because we've all experienced likely all of them.
All of them in different ways at different times.
Yeah. Are there ones that are more prevalent, or that as a therapist that you're seeing more often, or that, most people listening, that you could give us some tips on managing through?
Yeah. I see anxiety the most in my office, as well as the generational patterns on repeat, which often isn't seen until someone is helping you draw that out and make some of those connections. And neglecting your own needs, which goes back to what we talked about in episode 1. Anxiety shows up in so many different ways, and it might be mental, where you can't stop all the stuff going on at night, and bleeds into that perfectionism. I have to, either perfectionism, I don't want to do what my parents did to me. So this is kind of the driving and underlying dislike towards self, is you're seeing some things you're doing that maybe you can connect and remind you of your parents in the past. And anxiety about the future, or about the harm. What are my actions doing that are harming my child? And we're on very hyper alert with the increase of awareness in mental health. It has made a lot of mothers hyper alert to, I'm going to ruin my children for life.
I'm glad that you're bringing that up, because I think as we're talking about, even if you didn't go through what they call big T traumas in childhood, you had a general great upbringing. Are there some things your parents could have done differently? Sure. But there's also things that stuck with you, like you're talking about, just that great example that you gave, that makes us almost hyper reflect on what we're doing as parents and what are we doing to traumatize our kids in the future. And so help us kind of let go of that guilt and that shame a little bit. We don't want to have these super fragile kids, but we also don't want to be traumatizing them. So where's the balance?
Used a really key word there, hyper reflect. The anxiety becomes hyper fixating on doing it right, on not harming them. And life is going to come with frustration and stress. So the greatest thing we can do for our children is help them navigate frustration, understanding this is normal. So when I find, I didn't do that right as a mom, even speaking that out loud, I'm learning. Okay, I'm learning too. And then when our kids see us starting to accept learning and doing things different, that becomes a culture in our home, and they begin to pick up on those things. Normalizing, everybody gets stressed out. Everybody ends up yelling at their children. It's going to happen. So stressing about trying to prevent it actually increases our anxiety, increases our negative self-talk. And so it's the repair. It's the repair that's important. Saying, I'm sorry. And I often ask the question, what is the one thing you wished your parent, mom or dad would say to you? The answer is 99% of the time, I just wish they would say, I'm sorry. And you see adult men cry after they express that. So the repair, we know scientifically, lots of research with this, is what matters. And if we can learn as parents to become okay with making mistakes ourselves, then we become okay saying, I'm sorry. And then the whole family system, the current, right, with our own children, they learn so much through that, and they experience that connection with you that is necessary for healthy attachment.
And just healthy living too.
Healthy living.
Because I love how you bring it also about, life is going to be hard. And you can't have all rainbows and butterflies even in your own home. As much as you'd love to have just this perfect little home, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And no one's perfect.
And you use the word fragility, right? Mental health is that ability to cope with everyday stresses.
Yes.
So in trying to prevent everyday stresses, we do our kids a disservice because they become fragile rather than resilient.
Resilience is key in adulthood too. And I feel like a lot of adults are struggling with that.
Absolutely.
So in this parenting journey, when it comes to seeing a therapist like you, do you feel like this is for somebody who is dealing with some of these leaking indicators, is someone who should come see you? Or what about even someone who's struggling with the parenting side? Is that something that you help with?
Absolutely. Because again, the key to those struggles and unlocking them is additional perspective, is understanding some of the dynamics that you might not be aware of underlying that, and then helps you transfer that information into your home. And I think that's one of the things I love about working with women specifically, because they are so influential in their home, is that once they catch a hold of this for themselves, self-compassion, decreased anxiety, allowing themselves to make mistakes and shift it to, I'm learning because I'm human, right? Then the whole family culture, you just watch the anxiety through their stories, what they're reporting. Children start sleeping better. Moms start being able to physically embrace their children more frequently. That's what our kiddos need. And so it's tremendous healing and influence in that process when a woman catches a hold of these things.
And I love that it's not that somebody comes to you and you tell them what to do. You help them through what's going on with them. Like you help them with their mental health. You help them with that direction, and then they figure it out.
Yeah,
from there.
in the given realities of their life.
Exactly.
They're only with me an hour. They have to go back in, so they're the ones that are the experts on them and their families.
And in episode 1, we had some great tips on just kind of channeling into yourself and taking that pause, right, and kind of reflecting. And I loved some of the things you said in that episode. And then I think so far in this episode, one of my favorite things you talked about is how important that repair piece is, because we're all going to make mistakes. None of us are perfect. So I feel like that takes some weight off the shoulders, right? But do you have any other, so the apologetics piece of it is one thing, telling your kids that I'm sorry, I'm human, I made a mistake, here's what I did wrong, here's maybe what I'm going to try and do next time. Do you have any other tips for the repair piece when it comes to working with our kids? How can we take that one step further?
What comes to mind is the embrace and the eye-to-eye contact. Quiet tone, ability to repair without urgency. So very likely in the minute, that's not the time to repair. These are two separate events, if you will. There's going to be the blow up over the keys or over toys being picked up, like at whatever age and stage, there's going to be the rupture. Coming back when you're in a calm, rested, relaxed state of mind, and you can own what you've done. I'm sorry for this. Full stop. We're only responsible for our actions. If it is, I'm sorry I did X, but you blah, 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 blah. That's not an apology. That's not owning. The but actually kind of just negates everything here. There will be a time for the and. I am so sorry I hurt you this way. I can see how you experience this. Later, there's a discussion about maybe a change of behavior that the child needs to have.
Absolutely.
And I think finding a space that's more private, right, to have these conversations. I have 2 kids, but bedtime is when we really have good conversations and we reflect on things that happen during the day. And I find that to be really effective. I loved this episode. I think so many people can relate to it. I think it can feel very heavy, but I feel like you're also bringing a lot of hope back into people's lives through this episode. But I know you also love to talk about self-compassion, and in fact, you end some of your sessions with a piece of self-compassion. So can you walk us through how you love to encourage mamas in this area?
Yeah, self-compassion is something many of us haven't experienced and we don't practice. And it is definitely a way to begin to realize what we bring as individual moms to our families and to our own lives. And so learning the language of self-compassion is so helpful in becoming able to embrace who you are and live through that, expressing all those aspects of yourself in your journey of motherhood, work, wherever. So I often encourage clients to speak a word of self-compassion over themselves. And it's always interesting. It's one of the hardest parts, especially, again, for mamas, to practice, but so worth doing.
Can you walk us through that? What would that look like? Or can you give us an example?
Sure. So I just want you guys to think through the last 2-3 days and consider something that you want to speak compassion over. It might sound like, man, that was really hard when my son said, I hate you, mommy. And full stop, because that could actually just be self-compassion there, to recognize how hard that was. It can also be, it makes sense that I got angry when my partner said whatever. It makes sense is one of the most compassionate phrases we can use. It's not an excuse. It's recognizing it's a normal reaction to a stressful situation. It makes sense that I felt bad when my friend, said, you always blah, 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 blah.
It's that recognition piece.
Recognition. And it can include appreciation. It makes sense that I got really angry before the kids got out of the car when they were fighting. And I appreciate that I didn't respond in anger back. I just let them go.
Mm-hmm. Or if you did respond in a little bit of a way you didn't mean, I appreciate that I was able to have the courage to go apologize and have that conversation.
Exactly. So can you guys speak a word of compassion over yourself as we end?
It makes sense that I was feeling very anxious when I got home from school with my kids yesterday because of the amount of things on my to-do list. But I can appreciate that I took the time to lay in the hammock with my daughter instead of tackling the to-do list. Does that work?
Yeah. One shift for you.
Okay.
And exchange your but for and.
Okay.
I appreciate that with schedules changing and just lots of things going on, that my kids have been flexible. And while they're not always like that, I appreciate that we were able to work things out so that they reacted in a calm way. And I appreciate that I can appreciate that too. Like I'm taking the time to think about that.
What do you most appreciate about yourself in the change of schedules?
That I've actually been able to stay on top of it, even though sometimes it's overwhelming, like we haven't missed anything.
It's hard to offer self-compassion without all the other stuff, right?
I'd love to hear one from you, Kristen.
I appreciate the growth and the ability to learn to be better at my own apologies.
I hope those of you listening are taking our examples. We've been kind of put on the spot here, which has been kind of fun, right? You're listening to a real therapy session right now. But I hope that you're able to take this and reflect on yourself. And thank you, Kristen, for walking us through this, helping us feel so seen through this episode and giving us just so much hope for the future. I do want to mention that Kristen has written a blog article that is on the Motherhood Alliance site. It's on her profile. It's called Breaking Generational Trauma, A Mother's Journey to Healing. So if you would like to kind of continue this conversation, you can definitely check out that blog article. We're going to link it in the show notes as well. And in the show notes also, we will have a link to Kristen's website and her social media pages if you would like to connect with her there. Thank you, Kristen. This was a great episode, and we do have 2 more coming up. We're going to be talking about highly sensitive motherhood in our next episode, as well as in number 4, we'll be diving into what exactly is brain spotting and EMDR. These might be terms you've heard of, but you are looking for more info. Those ones will be for you. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.